Hey, good afternoon, everybody. This is Omar Kanda, joined with Alexis Bailey from CIT. We also have our friend Carter Dempsey from Republic Bank, which will be introducing you to a whole lot of important information regarding the updates for this coming tax season. I'm hoping everyone had a great off season this year or having a good one so far. As you can see, Carter is enjoying himself there in his condition right now. But please, and we did have a huge turnout, so we're going to get started real soon. Just want to point out that we have a lot of information to cover, and we'll open up the questions to the very end. So feel free to either raise your hand at the end, or if you have a question that comes up, just type it in the question and answer section, and we'll get to it and hopefully answer everyone's questions as quickly as possible. With that being said, Carter, go ahead, man.
First, I want to call attention to the fact that Omar's beard is awesome. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Just a little humor to begin with. So, hey, everybody, thanks for joining us here today. I think the thing is that there's been a lot of changes in the industry, and people aren't quite aware of what all those things are. So we wanted to take the time to visit with you today to talk about what's happened and, give you an idea of what's coming. We haven't announced our program details for the upcoming season, but we'll get into that. So first and foremost, thank you, everybody, for taking the time out of your busy day to come meet with us. Let's jump right in. So there we go. Okay, so, this is something that we do every year. It's just important for us to let you know that we're here for you today. We're here for you tomorrow. Republic is a community bank. CIT is community income tax. So we kind of fit hand in hand in our offering to you. We're committed to offering you tax products in a fair and responsible manner, and the consumers are presented clear choices in making their decision. As a stakeholder in the financial service industry, we endeavor to promote integrity throughout our program, and we love our quotes. So I like Republic Bank, the customer service and information they provide for my company and customer, easy and quick. Hope you can say the same. So let's move into the meat of some of the things we want to talk about today. So first and foremost, we have to understand where we've been to understand where we're going. So as an overview, this past season, the IRS adjusted the W-4 withholding 3 seasons ago. Now, that first season was stimulus. The second season was CDC, the Advanced Child Tax Credit payments. So we really didn't notice the effects that the adjustment of the W-4 withholding had at the time, right? There, in the 22-23 season, everything went back to pre-pandemic levels. There was no stimulus. There was no advanced CDC. And now that so much is online and taxpayers don't always receive a pay stub due to withholding, many were not aware they were getting a little more each paycheck, reducing their withholding and turning into in turn lowering or eliminating their refund. As you know, you had quite a few taxpayers that came to you this past season that were confused because they were showing a balance due, right? There were people that came to you from TurboTax out of confusion because they couldn't reconcile what they were seeing. Or, single no exemptions. There were many of those that had their refund reduced substantially to what we call a micro refund. So essentially, the IRS released numbers through 8/4 to show that there are 3 million taxpayers that went from getting a refund to having a balance due. And several 100,000 taxpayers have a micro refund, which we define as $500 or less. So it's also estimated as many 10 million taxpayers have not filed a return. Sometimes taxpayers will sit on the fence hoping that legislation is coming out that if they file later, they can get a break after the fact, as opposed to filing to owe and then subsequently being able to get a refund. It's not likely to happen right now, as there's not legislation facing us, that will change the circumstance. So this upcoming season, we're facing the same as we were this past season. So there's some things you need to know, called our State of the Union address. The IRS has developed a federal tax preparation program to pilot federal employees for the 23-24 season. They were provided $15 million to develop a roadmap and research options. As opposed to do research, they developed a pilot program to have an IRS-sponsored program to prepare returns, essentially competing with you in the professional marketplace. This first season will only involve federal employees, but the long-term implications of this program is that it will remove potential taxpayers from your business as an opportunity. It is politically motivated. A change in administration could see this change. Free File Alliance has been out there for a while. So as you can see, this is very pointed in a pivot for low-income taxpayers. So, what we've noticed is the taxpayers' behavior has changed. Their time value has become a primary factor in your success. The time associated with meeting with you, getting their return prepared, and the value for what is my refund after I pay your fees, right? If they're receiving a refund. Because what we noticed is taxpayers are much more price sensitive now. When their refund's $7,000, they don't mind paying a $500 or $750 fee. But when their refund goes to $1,000 or less, they have to reconcile with the fact that, am I getting enough of my refund to pay those fees? If I did it an alternative method at a lower fee, would I get a larger refund? Because there's not as much room to pay the bills that they have and have enough left over for what they were accustomed to. So, demand did not increase for your services this past year. That's what was interesting. We all on the business side who've been doing this for a long time knew the demand was high because we had offices calling us, telling us taxpayers were asking about loans 3-4 weeks earlier than they did in the year previous. And so you saw many taxpayers come in not knowing that they had a balance due and saying what they normally say, which is you can take it out of my refund, but then not realizing that there wasn't a refund to get your fee out of. So they then had to pivot, sometimes coming back to be able to pay for your services. So, or those with the decrease in the size of the refund, they were willing to pay, but they wanted the fee to be along the lines of what they still felt like they were getting enough of a refund left over to secure your services. So your expertise are valued and the relationship is important, but your knowledge skill will help you retain that business and combat attrition. It's difficult to add new taxpayers when the volume of new taxpayers does not exceed the amount of taxpayers that didn't return from the prior season. I mean, you either want to grow or you want to remain stable in the practice that you have because you set your expectations for what you're going to earn each year, or your allocation of resources from, if it's a second business, it's your part-time job versus your full-time job. And it becomes much more challenging when it's more moving target in the volume of taxpayers, right? So as an overview for the RT and EA industry, as an industry, refund transfers, and the IRS has something they call a RAL indicator. It's reported in the MEF file, and softwares are required to indicate when a return is a bank product return and the type versus one that's just filed as a direct deposit to the taxpayer or them receiving a check from the Treasury, right? So as an industry, the IRS has reported the numbers from what's reported from softwares in the MEF file to say that as of July, refund transfers as a whole, this is the entire industry, are down 7%, and advances are down 10% as of July. So, this is a little bit strange because for us, we saw advances were up as high as 40% over the previous year. And in the beginning of February, EA volume dropped precipitously because those that had the refund came in to get it, and then you had a smaller population that were eligible to receive an advance. So office's RT volume was impacted directly correlating to fees charged to the taxpayer. The lower the total fees, the volume impacted to a lesser extent than those that charge a higher fee. So CIT EROs, your average tax prep fee is actually around $250, right? And remember, you're only having $15 removed from the tax prep fee charged as the only line item on the bank app to express a tax prep fee to the taxpayer. So compare that to a Jackson Hewitt, a Liberty, an H&R Block, or any other, ERO that's using a software that has these extra fee buckets and additional fees that are assessed to the taxpayer. Yours was much different. So not only did you charge a lower fee, but the total cost to the taxpayer was significantly less. I mean, I won't name names, but just compared to another large transmitter, your average fee was $125 less before the first tax prep fee was charged. That's before $1 of tax prep was charged because of additional fees. So, hats off to CIT, because this model actually fits in the circumstance of the industry today. So, a couple other things that happened is TurboTax incorporated a conversion to pay preparer with Intuit contractors in 2023. So they noticed very quickly taxpayers were going online to prepare their return, seeing a balance due, and in the absence of an answer, that taxpayer would pick up and go to a paid preparer. So they had assistance, for which if the contractor provided assistance in preparing the return, a PETN was added, the return was converted to no longer be a DIY or self-filed, and the return that was originated as a DIY ultimately was filed with a paid preparer. So some of that conversion that started off as self-file became paid preparer, but they couldn't account for enough of it. And therefore, you guys benefited to some extent from that. I'm sure many of you saw some taxpayers that came into you that may have started on Turbo. Now, the only really light at the end of the tunnel from what we're aware of right now is that the IRS standard deduction will increase depending on the filing type, and EIC will increase by 7% for 23-24. Now, will that abate the overall circumstance for what's occurred this past season? No. It'll affect a smaller percentage of taxpayers, but it does help, right? So that's a little bit about the industry at large. Okay. So this is really important for this industry update, because we at Republic here want you to understand why the CIT was better than the traditional bank model. Taxpayers are very price sensitive right now. And in this past season, and it will be this next season as well. So because CIT only charges that fee against your tax prep fee, you are already providing a better value proposition to taxpayers on average than the next guy or gal next door, right? Because when you compare the total fees charged the taxpayer to CIT, right, the traditional bank product marketplace, in many instances, the cost was far less and therefore more attractive to taxpayers with you, CIT. For instance, just the RT fee alone is another $24.95, right? And 10. You don't have the transmitter fee, and some of the non-bank product e-file fees, some of these others have kicked up into. So your volume was actually much closer to the prior years than other EROs. I mean, it's, the adage, the grass is always greener on the other side. If you lost even one taxpayer, that bothers you, right? But if you knew that the person next to you lost 15 taxpayers for every one of your taxpayers, that's a different feeling, because it shows that even in light of a constrictive season, you did experience success. So the larger the tax prep fee or total fees charged the taxpayer, the higher impact that office saw. So the traditional bank product marketplace, where fees were higher, people saw attrition of 15 to 25%. Whereas CIT ERO's average impact, because there was a wide range of preparer success throughout CIT, nobody is really impacted more than 5%. Now, granted, that depends on where you are and what exactly happened, but that's dramatically different. It's as little as a third to a fifth of what people were seeing elsewhere. So you have access to all of our products and services that you need for success. But one of the other things that really played this past season were those free options. So we offered the $500,000, the $500 and the $1,000 loans at no additional cost to the taxpayer. Now, you and I both know that that's saving $16, $32 for the loan, but they see free, and it's like a psychological component for them. So 62% of taxpayers elected a free option this past year, which is significantly higher than the previous year for those two different loan amounts. So the idea of getting the highest loan amount possible wasn't the same as in seasons past, and taxpayers were often eligible for $3,000, $4,500, still choosing $1,000, right? Because they wanted to get a loan, but they still wanted enough of their refund after funding. They didn't want to get the loan to pay for it and possibly not have any refund after. So, but what was interesting in terms of the lending to you all and the advance of your fees, we paid out over $1 million in pre-wrap to just CIT Eros this past season. That's the preseason Euro advance. And we have over $5 million in season for you all. So you certainly took advantage of the resources we made available to you to get you over the hump, get your business started, operate before path funding to get, half of your fees. Now, looking forward to next season. There are two webinars this year. The first one was the industry updates, because we really have come to find that most preparers are not aware of what's actually occurred and why what's happening is happening. So we felt it was important for you to break this out into two, to tell you where we're at, what's going on, and then where we're looking to go. So next season, we are going to continue to offer the free loan options to you in the EA Plus. Those played very well. So we feel like that's something we need to continue to have. We will also be continuing to pay prior year fees to offices that fund in the current season, as the IRS is now consistently honoring the bank's routing transit Dan from prior returns when funding. So we just ask one thing, because we noticed a little bit of this. Please pay attention to when you're being paid prior year fees in the current year, so you're not doubling up on fees for people that have actually funded, because they'll call us and say, well, that I funded and then they charged me again. Right. We don't get involved. That's between you and them. But, they're going to want to come back and have you refund if they were double billed. Doesn't happen often, but it happens. Now, eventually amended returns will be able to be filed as bank products as well. It does not appear as if that will be the case for the next season, as there are several challenges to be worked through based on how the IRS reports when funding is received and for what year it pertains to. So in that actual file they send, it's difficult to discern between funding for the current year versus the past 3 years, which an amended return could be. And we need to apply it properly to the correct preparer with respect to the correct season. And then finally, talked with Omar and Alexis about this right before the call. We are not prepared to announce it yet, but soon. We are working on a game changer for you for this next season. It is a very big deal. It will be something that we believe that really will help you compete with the big box chains. Let's just leave it at that. Omar, Alexis, would you say that's a fair assessment?
Oh, absolutely.
So our hope is to be announcing that by the end of this month. And then once we do, just so you know, assuming that all things go according to plan, everybody here would have the potential to be eligible for that. Any current user of CIT would have the ability to access this, and it is a little different than what we've done in the past, so it should serve to create a good buzz for you and your business. And then, if you got any questions, this is where you call to reach us, but I think we're going to hold a question answer period, because I'm sure there's got to be some questions.
Absolutely. And also thanks, Carter, for all this information. I really honestly believe that it's hard for me to contain my enthusiasm with this presentation, because you're not just hearing it from us. We've been doing this. We're entering about the 10th year in this pricing model, which we have not really changed at all. But our main goal since the very beginning is to provide our EROs with the pricing power. And we feel that is the best way to grow your business in the most responsible and reasonable way. And when facing challenges such as changes in the industry, it has really proven to be the right model going forward. So I'm definitely excited, and I look forward to working with a lot of you guys. It's been, an exciting journey, and we've built some excellent relationship. And I do feel like, our team with Republic and tax wise and maintaining the low cost model is not uh, is is helping you grow, but not charging you fees. Like, we're in it together. We're trying to help you grow instead of adding more fees, adding more bucket that in fact does nothing for you except hurt your business and just drive away good taxpayers that are interested in getting value for what they're paying for, especially with the market, the cost of living, everything plays fact into it. And given the fact that we had such a strong year despite those challenges, really makes me excited and and a believer in our product. So um, definitely proud of everything that we've accomplished over the years, and all of you as being part of our program. you do have questions, definitely get with us. We're going to be on top of these webinars. We're going to make sure that we give you all the updates as soon as they come out. We want to stay on your side in this coming year and making sure you're getting the most information to help get, steer you in the right direction this coming season. So if you have any questions, just type them in, or if you want to raise your hand, I'll unmute you, and feel free to go ahead and let us know what kind of questions you have.
Yeah, so while we're getting some questions, let me just highlight by saying this. What you know is that there's price sensitivity in the marketplace. Taxpayers are sensitive to the price that they're being charged. Marketing is very important because in setting the correct expectation on the front end, taxpayers have been conditioned from this past season, know what to expect, but they're going to be looking for answers earlier and wanting to know if they themselves, have this as an option, if they're getting a refund, whatever that case may be. So when you start marketing is important. Hopefully, once we get to the point where we're announcing what we're doing for this upcoming year, that will definitely encourage you to market sooner. But it's not the adage from what people said for some time that, taxpayers will pay anything. You prepare their return, their refund so large, they'll pay whatever that fee is. That's just not the case anymore. And we saw that this past season. So.
It appears that I have a raised hand. Let me see. Kitty has her hand raised. Let me go ahead. Hey, Kitty, can you speak into the microphone? I don't know if we can hear you.
They're all in listen only mode.
Correct. I just activated it.
Okay.
It's loading.
We want to hear from you, Kitty.
We have a huge turnout for such an early, update. So I know that this is probably on a lot of people's minds, and people are definitely wanting to know what's going on, or get the most information that they can this time of year.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we
Yes,
can.
ma'am.
Kitty.
Oh, okay, good. Well, the question I have is the problem that we had with the W-4s. And with so many of them, it's such a complicated thing and people don't understand. And they just went in and put the same thing withheld that they've always done. And then they come back. I mean, I had one particular guy with the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office that ended up, they never took anything out of his paycheck. And so at the end of the year, he owed a huge bill. And it's difficult to even, they're coming in and they're wanting help to fill out their W-4. And I'm like, I really can't do this for you. Are they going to change anything with that? I mean, what the heck was wrong with what we were doing before that?
So that is an excellent question. Thank you very much. I think part of the problem is that the idea was they were going to make a little more money available to them throughout the year that they could use as opposed to receiving more in their refunds. So the adjustment was specifically to have fewer dollars available to the taxpayer at refund time to have access to dollars more for, what they may need throughout the year. Here's the real problem. Is it Kitty?
Yes.
Okay. Here's the real problem that we face. Depending on what the income of the individual is and how close they are to meeting their obligations each month, they get accustomed to what it is they're getting each week or every 2 weeks to pay their bills, buy their groceries, get their gas. And oftentimes they don't have much wiggle room in that to the amount of money that they have after they pay all that. So they become very accustomed to this amount. So trying to condition them to change what their withholding is, it's hard to argue the fact that, okay, so how much money did you have left over you paid your bills? Not enough, right, is the most common answer for our average taxpayer. So we're not going to really be able to condition them to adjust their W-4 withholding in a way that would benefit them without first identifying that they had $100 a week in excess income that they would rather receive at the end of the year. And I think that's a long-standing problem. Now to your second question, is this going to change? Not for this next year. It is going to, everybody has their political affiliations. We don't like to get political in these conversations, but right now there is a very big push to focus on, tax preparation. As as I said, the IRS was supposed to research, and they actually developed a pilot for a tax software run by the IRS to prepare people's returns. So this seems like a play at a longer term solution. We hear that they support free enterprise and people having choices, yet for most taxpayers, when they come to prepare their return that are accustomed to having the fee removed, that's what they've relied on. So, if they're a balance due, it's more challenging for them. And your fee is not much different than if they're paying you up front versus receiving a product, right? Because your tax prep fee is what it is, less than 15. It's not like that makes much a difference for them with you to pay you out of pocket versus not. It's a matter of preference. So a change in legislation would probably require a change in administration, but that's two-part speculation on my part. It does not appear to abate, that it's going to abate this next season.
Yeah.
There's no writing on the wall, because I told you the only two benefits are the standard deductions going up and EICs increasing by 7%. Everybody on this call knows that that's dollars.
Right. Right.
It's not significant.
The only thing I've done to be able to help, I think, in any way is I've stressed to them at the middle of the year, go in and see what your year-to-date withholding is and look where you're at. If you're at 20% on tax bracket, then make sure you've got 20%, or you better start putting some in a savings account to pay it.
That is a very good point. I think, Kitty, you hit on something really good. It's one thing for someone to be receiving a refund and not feel like it's enough. It's another thing for someone to owe and need not to owe, right? To be where they're either receiving a refund or it's, a zero-sum gain, right?
Right.
And that's where your advice comes in very handy. And, here's the problem. We remember for years, pay stubs were handed out, right? Don't you remember somebody come by and drop your thing and you'd look at it and you'd evaluate it? Now it's all online. People don't go do that. So nobody noticed that their paycheck was $67 more a pay period, and that had a substantial difference at the end of the year versus, $67. I don't think anything of it because they only see that the amount deposited is a little more. They didn't go look at their actual pay stub. So that's useful advice to give. But as far as how they change their W-4, I mean, you've seen it.
None of the HR departments know what in the world they're doing. They're trying to give people advice and they're messing them up.
It's true in most cases. We've dealt with that as well. It's very good points.
Yeah. Okay. I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. Thank you.
It is important, like you said, to tell people to go look. I mean, all you're going to do is put them in a situation where they won't be surprised when they're sitting in front of you in December or January or February or March, right?
Looking at me like I did something wrong.
Well, and see, that's what's funny. Initially, the blame was on preparers. They were blaming the preparer as if it was something you did. And, because you guys don't really have any, CIT is such a clean book of business. You guys don't have fraud running through you. The big fraud this year was, oh, your refund's not big enough. I'll find it for you. So they're going over to Schedule 3 of the 1040 and overriding line 13 to increase other payments to increase the refund. They weren't even calculating. They were just overriding line items and putting internal revenue code, what was it, 3451 or whatever, to just increase refunds. Now, the IRS wasn't funding these. Fraud was at an all-time high. But that was what taxpayers were trying to do. The fuel tax credit, education credit, energy credits, it was just off the chain. Schedule Cs more than what we've been accustomed to. And it gives good preparers a bad name because you're just doing your job in the way it's supposed to be done. These preparers are making it hard for everybody.
Well, and with the auditors that they've got in there too, they're all auditing the 1040s. And so they're sending out stupid letters to that nobody ever even looked at before. And now and it's education credit, it's, stuff like that they're getting back. But I mean, if this is what the client tells you they want on their return and it has to be on their return, then I tell them, well, if it comes back, it's on you. What do you do?
Yeah, the absence of a 1098-T is something, right?
Right. For sure. But,
well, Kitty, thank you. That was
oh,
very, very well put.
well, thank you for your time.
And also, I think that, it was people are maybe a little bit more aware this year with the W-4 situation since it did impact their refunds. And I wouldn't think it's a bad idea to educate my taxpayer this time of year. So it gives you an opportunity to get a touch point with them, remind them of what's going on, and maybe have them double check their withholding. Because once the year comes to an end and they're ready to file for next year, it's going to make you even look better as a preparer that you're looking out for them. So I'll take it as an opportunity as well, just to double check with some of my clients.
Very good.
A question popped up. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Kitty,
No,
I didn't mean to interrupt you. Please go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm fine.
So a question popped up in the Q&A. Good question, Shirley, about the ERO loan, the preseason loan. So let me magnify and amplify a little bit. So Omar and Alexis are your guys' best friends. You don't even know it. So the second you guys call them, despite what you think, any feedback, they immediately call and make that suggestion, right? So I think it was Alexis, Omar, it was either last season before, he said, listen, we need to go down to 50 bank products where preparers are eligible for pre-wrap. And we need to be able to extend the fees to be more than 10% of the fees because oftentimes preparers will need a little more help, right? So what we have committed to with CIT is you can have as little as 50 bank products and be eligible for pre-wrap. And we'll do up to 25% in fees. Now, if you're a first year to CIT, we'll only do 10% in the first year. We'll still go to the 50 bank products, but we'll only do 10%. Once you've had 1 year business CIT in Republic, we will go up to 25%. Now, the second part of your question, will we start the ERO loan season earlier? So I just want to be fully transparent with you guys because honestly, I know a lot of you and we get along real well. I think you appreciate honesty. We're not going to go earlier in November for the preseason loan, and here's why. So what you may or may not know is all the banks do cross collections on the ERO preseason lending, right? So if you take money from one bank and then you use another, we do talk with the other banks to get our money. And we don't have a problem in CIT. That's not the point. The point is that like Pathward, which has EPS and Refund Advantage, they started in October. Well, the amount of people that will get money in October and then turn around and go get more money from another bank because that money was not, and this is not you, Shirley, it's not what I'm saying. It's just the reason why we made the decision not to. The amount of people that will go get money in October, use it for things not business related, and then get to November and come back and get more money because they are using that for their business because it's closer to the season. And then we have to go get money from another bank because they took money from them, not intending to use them because they could get it earlier, is astronomical. We're talking millions of dollars. So the problem with starting in October is the percentage of offices that will take money from more than one bank because that money isn't actually going to their business. It's going to whatever their expenses are. And hey, these are your fees. So I don't have a problem. Whatever you choose to use the money for is your business. But the fact that we're doing so many collections for offices that received the preseason loans in October versus the ones that go November and forward are, more congruent with I use that bank, use that software is one of the reasons why we really haven't pushed it back. There's a lot of fraud going on with the offices getting money in October. And this money has not knowing what your season's going to be and having to be paid back, sometimes it can get to be a lot. And when we start collecting back, it really puts a hamper on preparers' resources because we're collecting back and you really don't fully pay off your pre-wrap and wrap until that first or second PATH Act funding, right? So we'll start opt-in on November 1st. We'll start sending out first money November 8th, but we really can't justify going earlier than that because of what we've seen in the behavior amongst offices getting that money in October with the other banks. They're doing it as a marketing tool, but they're really getting robbed blind. And then we're responsible for getting that money for them. I hope that makes sense, Shirley. But it's a good question.
Yes, thank you for that question, Charlie. I think we don't really have a lot of more questions coming in, Carter. I do appreciate you taking the time and updating us on this webinar and this industry updates. Let me see, actually, I think somebody does have some, Tamasha. Let me go ahead and allow that question.
Hello.
Hey, Tamasha.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I have a quick question that pertains to the preseason loans that we offer the clients and the fee that's associated with it that the ERO has to pay. Has there been any talk about, I know that there are two options that the clients can apply for when it pertains to loans, that the client will be responsible for that fee, but is there any talk about lowering the cost that as the ERO we have to pay for each loan that our clients get approved for?
So I hear what you're saying. You're talking about for the taxpayer advances, there's a finance charge for the taxpayer. That's one thing,
Yeah.
but there's a charge to the preparer as well. And that's what you're addressing right now, correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So this is a very common question, and it's a good question. And let me pose it back like this: it's a catch-22. Okay, so the average loan that's provided to the taxpayer, one of the reasons why our loan is the highest in the industry, like our average loan is higher than Pathward or TPG by far, is because we price the loan to assume that we're going to have a certain loss rate of this with having an average loan of this. So the natural occurrence with that is if we lower the fee, the average loan amount is going to go down, which means your taxpayers will get less. And it's not that, funding has been better, losses weren't as high this past year. But the problem is because taxpayers, are also choosing those free options 62% of the time, there was no finance charge for those taxpayers, for 62% of the loans we did. Part of the reason we kept the fee the way it was is because it kept us from having to increase your fee or lower the average loan to the taxpayer. So it's a real catch-22. If we lower the fee, it affects our ability to offer free loans at all. Versus when we offered the free loans, we didn't increase the ERO fee, because when we did the $500,000 for free, we didn't increase your fee. It stayed exactly the same. That was millions of dollars of a choice to give you guys a better solution for your taxpayers. But in turn, let's say outside of the free options, we did lower it. Every $5 you lower it could lower the average loan by $100 to $150, right? So now, if we need to look at a different program that has lower eligible loan amounts to have a lower fee, that's something we can discuss if you feel like that's something we need to look at as a program. But within that program, that EA Plus, it's kind of the perfect mix of fee, average loan, and still having these free options. So, if there was a time to do it, it's certainly not in these, at least this season or next season, where everything is just kind of gone like this, right? It got tight for all of us too as a bank. This was not stellar for anybody in the industry because everything went like this. So, we, like I said, those $500,000 loans were a big hit, but we felt like you guys needed those to be successful because taxpayers are so price sensitive, right? You do have the doc prep fee bucket, which can help offset, but other than that, not at this time. We would need to see kind of a resurgence in order to reconsider that outside of creating a loan program that maybe only went up to 3,000 with a lower fee, right? Because we go up to 6,000. Does that make sense, ma'am?
It does. It does.
It's a reasonable question though, because you're already charging reasonable fees and you're just trying to watch your costs. So I totally get it.
Right. And it's just good to hear it from the bank's perspective, because I can take it from the ERO perspective, but now I hear it from your side. And me as being a business owner and thinking about different costs that it takes to offer these loans, now I got an understanding.
Let me ask you a question since you asked that question. You know, like I don't want to name other banks because we try not to go in the mud, right? But you like having a loan that's an average of $1,500. I mean, this is rhetorical, right? $1,500. But if I told you that we could do something and that average loan will go down to like $750, would that have an impact on your decision making? Or would you say, listen, I just want to pay less. I don't care what they get. What would be your feeling on? I mean, maybe that's not the response, but you know what I'm saying. Like,
right. So based on my clientele, I have a small number of clients that I'm going to say about 20 that want to take advantage of the loan options anyway. And some of them get approved for higher amounts and they're like, no, I only want 500. I only want 1,000. But then I'll drop to that and then they want the $6,000 loans. And I'll be honest, and sometimes it makes what I want to say. Someone may go somewhere else if they feel like, because a lot of these taxpayers, they've been in the game, like they're seasoned a little bit like we are, so they know how to play the whole bank game. Or if I didn't get approved for this amount over here, let me go find another preparer who use a different bank and see can I get approved over there. So it really wouldn't make a difference. I wouldn't say, yeah, let's try to find a program, because you know, taxpayers, they can be so fickle. One year they don't want it, the next year they spend all their money, they do want it. I was just kind of thinking like if it was something, you know, overall that if it could lower the ERO expense that we have. But I do remember that this year you guys did add that line item where we can add that additional, I think what, $45 or something.
50. Yeah, but
50, right. So that helped. Yeah, that help offsets the cost that we have. And now in talking about that, that brings up one more question that I have. I hope I have time for it. My next question. I had a client this past season and she got started early with the EA loan. And what she did when it was time for the IRS to open up, something happened with her return and it got rejected. Well, she went somewhere else. After getting a loan from me, she ended up going somewhere else. She didn't provide me with the document that I needed to get her return accepted. So she went to another preparer. Long story, Republic never got paid back the money for her loan. That affected my office rating. And so that'll put me in a position where I may not qualify to get like my office advance because I had this number where Republic was not able to recover their funds for a loan. I know you mentioned earlier, like with ERO offices, how you advance the money out earlier and you guys communicate. So like if an ERO try to go to one office and get a loan, y'all talk and y'all can recoup that money. Is it a way to do that with taxpayers that if they go to one office and get that advance and then try to go off to a different office and get an advance somewhere else? Is it a way to recoup that money so then my office is not impacted the next tax season and then I'm not able to either offer loans or take advantage of the advances that I can get to help my loan, like it might be my office in November to get the funding because that impacted my office.
Okay, so let's start macro and go to micro. First and foremost, after you know, based on time of day in the morning, we can talk and I can look at your office to make sure you know what you have available and everything's good at a a professional level, because we don't need all these other people in your work business, right?
Right.
That aside,
Okay.
here's what happened. When the IRS took away the debt indicator, the FDIC said providing RALs was unsound. So the loans these days, they're not RALs, right? There's a preparer fee, and then there's a taxpayer fee, but the total APR is less than 36%. But there was an also catch to that. These loans are also non-recourse. So when you're doing a B2B loan with me to get like preseason money, those are not something to where we can't go to another bank to get our money back because they're B2B. As a consumer, this loan is non-recourse. Even in the instance of, I pulled a little funny business because I've seen what you're saying a billion times, right? But there is supposed to be something that keeps them from getting a loan in another place. So there's something called a pre-act database, right?
Okay.
Whenever you submit a loan, it goes into a database in a third party. So when they go submit a loan someplace else, it's supposed to ping that. And if they got a loan, decline them for having already received a loan elsewhere. Now, not every program in the entire industry takes part in that pre-act database. So if you're saying they went and got a loan somewhere, it'd have to be like there's only one of two places that could have occurred because everybody else is feeding into this database. So if they pulled funny business on you, they got the loan from you and went someplace else, they may have been able to get their return filed, but 80% sure that they shouldn't be able to get a loan through them because it was rejected. So they didn't have to pay you back and they got the entire amount of the refund. They still won, right? In terms of, but they didn't have to pay it back. So we don't have the ability to make it recourse for the taxpayers. All of the shift is between offices, not at the taxpayer level. So unfortunately, no. But again, because your business isn't everybody else's business, we can talk tomorrow and look at your office and look at the taxpayer, do anything you want and see where you're at. Because, there's nothing worse than having something affect your loan loss ratio and then here you may not be eligible for the pre-act, or it affect your numbers for the pre-rep money that you desperately need in November. So we'll look at that and get you a sound answer here in August and not have you wait until November when you're stressed, and just add to that stress to put that question in there.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Those are good questions. I would love to go cross collect on taxpayers. Trust me.
Thanks, Tamara. I do have another hand raised, Carter, and
I love it. All the questions. We love questions.
And everybody remember, I don't know if we have much more room for hand raising, but if you have the time, go ahead and type the question in the Q&A section just for the sake of time. And also keep in mind, we're keeping this recorded. Get with us offline if you need follow-up questions, just like this example here. I'm going to go ahead and enable Jay.
Well, here, hold on a sec. Angela Covington put a question out there in the Q&A. Yes, ma'am. Enrollment still opens in October. The opt-in for your pre-wrap, pre-act, something special we haven't talked about yet, that all starts November 1st, right? You can get your preseason money as early as November 8th. But yes, ma'am, enrollment is still slated to start in early October. Correct, Omar and Alexis?
That's correct.
Okay.
Jay, are you there?
Yep, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right, guys. Thanks for having the webinar. I have a couple questions. Easy one first on the marketing materials that Republic has. I use those a lot. I hang them in my windows. I put them out in the office. But the last couple of years, I've had issues with the Spanish banners. 2 years ago, the Spanish banner came completely different print and color than the English banner. I don't remember if it was the EA or the RT, but it was one of those. So I didn't even hang it because it just looked different. And then last year, there was no Spanish, where's my list? There was no Spanish RT banner. I think there was a Spanish.
Wait, hold on. Oh, I'm writing this down, Jay. I'm not trying to be rude. I want to make sure I get this. So the Spanish banner was a different color than the English banner.
2 years ago, the print was
2
different.
years ago.
Yeah. And last year, there was no Spanish RT banner is what my notes show. I don't remember specifically, but that's what my notes say. There was no RT Spanish. Like right now, I still have my English RT banner still in the window, but I don't have one for Spanish.
Here, let me go ahead and do this because I'm gonna need to call her back too. So, Jay, Jay, I know who you are. Jay, let me. Unfortunately, if I was just gonna make something up, I'd give you an answer here. But unfortunately, I have to go look at this to provide you a response. But I'm gonna call you after this because what I know is that we run out of supplies. And so we reproduce, or sometimes we correct, especially since we have Spanish speaking individuals in here. If you remember, if you've been here a while, 4 or 5 years ago, we had a Spanish banner that if you actually were a native Spanish speaker and you related that precisely, it didn't quite hold water. So we've improved them, but the color change concerns me. And the fact you said you didn't get one, my question is, did it not ship or was it not available? So Jay, I'll hit you up with both those answers, but I'll need to call. Very good stuff.
Okay.
Thank you. That's stuff I need to know. Did you have anything else, Jay?
Yeah, one more on the 500 to 1,000 no charge to the client EAs. Is there anything that can be done on your end to help market that for us through some of those same materials? I know it may be a lot to add to the banners or the handouts, but on my end, it was kind of like a double-edged sword. It was like there was clients that were like, "Oh, great, I get a free loan that I wasn't expecting," and then other clients, I'm like, "You weren't going to get that loan anyway. You don't need it, and it just cost me $45. It was like I want people that want to take advantage of it, and maybe they get a bank product and they weren't going to get the 500 to 1,000. On the other side, I was like, ugh, I just got charged $45 for nothing. But having that maybe somewhere on the banners or on the print to try to make it a better tool would be beneficial, because I think when you combine that with the low fees, it's a big difference, but it's just really hard to communicate that and pass that along to the client before you got them in the door.
Okay, so let me repeat this to you. A couple things. It's one thing when someone's setting out for the 500,000 for free to begin with versus someone was countered into it because they applied for a higher amount and then it was free, but they didn't know that. And so it would have been better for them to be aware in terms of the marketing. So that's something that you could say, hey, listen, if you apply for the $2,000 loan, you could be countered into 1,500, which are free, which are good for them to know up front as opposed to after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Sure.
And then we had the 2 years ago Spanish banner, different colors. And then last year, no Spanish RT. I'm still going to call you after this, Jay. I just want to make sure I'm getting this right. Okay.
No problem.
Yeah, this is the exact type of stuff why we do this. If you have any little thing, we like to hear it because we really do want to make the program the best we can for you. And we don't always do everything perfect. I cannot make you a promise. Obviously, I can't change 2 years ago. Last year, I'm concerned, did you not get it or was it not there? And the 500,000 is really good. We're in the process of that right now. So I can take that question back and get you a legit answer sooner than later.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay.
Thanks for the question, Jay.
That was good. Man, these are good.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and hold on. I need to write down because I'm going to have to call. Tamasha Rosser. Is that correct?
That is correct. We'll give you her contact if you don't have it.
Okay. Thank you so much. I'm sorry to. That was good. That was real good. All right. So there's some more. Okay. Shirley. Shirley's got 2 in here. She's winning. Okay. So Shirley, if you feel comfortable, could you please have him enable your speak to talk about it? Because I don't want to ask you to type all that out. I'm sure that's a mouthful. So you said that you had bad experiences with NetSpin. Are we going to still use them? Yes, we're going to use them, but I need to know what your experience is because there is a change this year that's supposed to benefit you. We are sending out cards earlier, and cards from the previous year's stock are still active in the upcoming year as well if you have leftover cards. But I want to hear what your bad experience was to understand.
Hey, how y'all doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Okay, my experience was when my clients signed up for the loan and they wanted on. I'm sorry, I'm talking like this. I just had surgery, so forgive me.
It's okay.
Um, my clients wanted the loan and they wanted on a card, so it was beneficial to them. But when we signed them up and they got the card, and they was approved or whatever. When they got ready to activate the card, they couldn't activate it. So when we call, they'll come back to me, and when we called NetSpend, they was like, it's nothing they can do. So we had to call the bank. When I called the bank was like, it's up to NetSpend. So they end up had to give us a check and sit in the card.
Okay, so Shirley, I know exactly what your issue is. What happens is did you offer cards the year prior? Was last year your first year offering cards?
No, this is like I think I'm going in with the third year with them. So I think I have had cards every year.
Okay, so it's one of two things, either one of which I can address. But here's what occurs. So, and just let this play out because the first part doesn't pertain to you, but it may to others. The
Okay.
very first year you sign up with Republic, you have to opt in for cards. Once you opt in and you get cards, every year following, if you offer cards, you'll automatically be opted in and get shipped a certain amount of cards. Now, what happens is with that initial enrollment for the year, your application profile goes to NetSpend to tie those cards to your business, right? And then when you file for a taxpayer to receive a bank product, they must wait to activate the card for at least some period of time for that application file to get to NetSpend to marry it to that taxpayer. If they try to activate it in advance of it, it'll show that they don't have a profile and they'll boot it out and then they'll get mailed a check. So it's either about timing associated with when they tried to activate the card based on receipt and NetSpend having received the taxpayer profile, or it means that NetSpend didn't have your profile tied to those cards, so those cards were not seen as active for the season. So did you have any taxpayer that got a NetSpend card this past year successfully, or did none of them get a NetSpend
Yes, I
card
did. I
successfully?
had like one or two, but then the rest of them, it didn't go through.
So if you even had one that worked, then it's not your office
Yeah.
profile. So let's do this. Shirley, I'll follow up with you for you to give me those taxpayers' information, and I'll find out specifically what would happen with each of them. 9 times out of 10, it's that they tried to activate the card too soon, and then they can't go back, right? It fails to activate because they don't have that profile. It's not like that profile can come after the fact, and then they can activate. It kind of kicks them out of queue, right?
Okay.
Otherwise, if it's something that's larger than that, I can get addressed with NetSpend. But in either effect, I have to look at those taxpayers to see what the circumstance is.
Okay.
And there's also a reason why you kind of want us to use NetSpend next year. I can't really talk about it yet, but once we get
Okay.
there, I'm pretty sure you'll be like, I'll give them one more chance.
Okay. All right. Well, thank
And
you so much for answering it for me.
yes, ma'am. Shirley Grandinson. I got it. Okay. Janelle, how do we compete? Okay. So here's the big thing about that misconception, right? When it says that H&R Block's offering free refund advances up to $3,500, right? First of all, the percentage of taxpayers getting them, right? And the actual total amount of fees charged to the taxpayer. So everybody took a hit, including them. The problem is that they saddle the fees associated with that to the individual branch because they're franchisees of the franchisor, right? So you choose what you want to offer and have available, and then choose to participate in that cost if you have it. When a lot of people are looking at HR Block, Jackson Hewitt, or Liberty, they see these things like, why can't we have that? Because I can absolutely assure you, if someone told you what fee you had to pay for that or charge, you wouldn't choose to do it. But they don't have a choice as a franchisee. They're subject to the terms of being a franchisee of H&R Block. So the cost of that, like what I was asked about earlier, can we lower the ERO EA fee? It's astronomical. And then when you get into what the taxpayer is charged in full for season, it's not free. There are administrative fees. It may not tie specifically to that, but they get their fee, right?
Absolutely.
It's good marketing, but the back end of it, it's not the same. It looks better than what it is, right? So just like I told you, we did the 500,000 for free. We almost had to raise the ERO fee, but we tried to be as reasonable as we could, knowing what was happening in the season, to not do so. Can you imagine what their fee is? If we're doing 500,000 and that was what we faced with where we're at, can you imagine what $3,500 is? Because they're still responsible for their losses, right? So they have to cover at least 4% of that. So $140. I don't think you want to pay $140, right? Especially when your average tax prep fee is $250. What are you going to be left with, $110 after the fact? So it's not always as it appears. It's a good question though. I get asked that a lot for all of them. Every client of mine that requested a loan received a smaller amount. There's a way to see a requirement. Okay. So Janelle, we would actually need to specifically talk. I do have the ability to look at your business and look and see. There are a couple things that can affect that. One, if there is no prior year funding history on the taxpayer, that can still get them approved, but for a lower amount. Or if they didn't fully fund last year. And when I say didn't fully fund, if they funded even a penny less than what their IRS acknowledgement was at, it can also affect them getting a lower loan amount, right? Because all of our loans are approved on the probability of funding, right? So whatever is submitted, the system goes in and looks at the return. What is the probability of this return funding based on prior year funding information being present as well? The higher probability of funding, the higher chance that they'll get what they're asking for. But also keep in mind, the grass isn't greener. Republic is the only one that does counters. At the other banks, you apply for that, you either get it or you don't. Here, they may not get what they're applying for that reason, but they're still getting a loan. So the question is, would they prefer to get a loan or not one at all? But to be fair, Janelle, I hope I'm saying that correct. We really should talk, because I would have to look at specifically the examples you're giving to give you very specific responses for those taxpayers. So I got your name written down. Lower. Well, you guys gave me a bunch of homework. I love it.
Yeah, you got her name right too.
Oh, I did. Good.
Yeah, we like Janelle.
I never want to be disrespectful. Okay.
How are you doing on time, Carter? Do you think we have time for one more question?
Listen, this is about you guys. If people have questions, I'll take whatever's time needed to get their question answered. We're not going to end this with people having unanswered questions unless you guys feel you need to.
Yeah,
Do it.
I'm loving this conversation so far. It's really informative and engaging.
Yeah, we're just loving the beard.
Thank you, Carter. I'm loving your condo in Louisville over there on the ocean view.
Yeah, because there's ocean in Louisville.
Nikita, can you hear us? Are you able to speak? I believe I allowed you.
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you. Good afternoon.
Hi.
My question is, I had a number of clients, for some reason, when they call the IRS to verify their identity, they're bypassing us and the bank and getting their check mailed. Do you know? I mean, is this a known issue? Is anyone
Okay,
else
so
experiencing this? Is there something that we're doing wrong?
Nikita, the very first thing I need to do right now is this, because that is an awesome question. And I wouldn't have thought to say it had you asked. So it's not what you're doing. It's part of what the taxpayer is doing or not doing. So whenever you're selected for verifying your identity, there's a variety of processes you have to go through, one of them being their out of wallet questions. If you cannot answer all of the out of wallet questions, then they will disregard the direct deposit method, flip the check, right? Now that depends on the circumstance associated with the return as to whether they go that direction versus being able to verify the routing, transit, and account information. And taxpayers seem to have such a problem with this. Now, hold on, there's a third option I don't like to talk about, which is taxpayers intentionally trying to ensure that they're getting the money sent to them as opposed to you, right? They intentionally answer things incorrectly, so they're bypassing you. But
Right.
the number one situation we deal with is, remember, what's filed to the IRS, the routing, transit, and account information is ours. So, and in the program guidelines, the RTN is present. The DAN is the EFIN plus the social plus the digit year, right? So
Right.
this next year, that's going to be associated with the filing year, the EFIN plus the social and the filing year. And we can get you, I send out an email every year with what the routing, transit, and the account number are formulated as. We can send that again early. They have to verify what's on their return for where the IRS is sending the money. And what they do is they verify their own direct deposit information, which is basically the ultimate bank account from when we receive the funds, where we distribute to, right?
Right.
But the IRS is looking for what's on that 1040, which is our information. So when they can't confirm it accurately, they disregard the direct deposit method and flip to a check, right?
Okay.
Also, if there are certain identity situations where it doesn't even get that far. They will disregard the identity, disregard the direct deposit method and mail a check because there is something suspect with the taxpayer's identity to begin with. Like the return was filed by more than one person and someone made a claim that the return was filed fraudulently. That will often get it disregarded as a direct deposit method, flip to a check. The paper trail versus, the money went to account is gone. Because if you mail a check, it typically delays the issuance of the check by at least 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay, makes sense.
That's a doozy, though, and that's such a good question. It's happening more and more. Now, I will resend the email to Omar and Alexis that shows the formation of the routing, transit, and the DAN, because it's good to have that there just to look at. So when you speak to taxpayers, you remind them this is the information you need to verify, right?
Right. Okay. Okay, thank you so much for answering that question. I just wanted to make sure because I was like, the numbers are increasing each year of the amount of people that's being able to bypass us. And I'm trying to see, is it something that they're saying, or are they giving off keywords or something? And yeah, we're not getting paid.
Well, sometimes you just have insufficient help. We all go to Walmart, right? You go up to the front counter and sometimes you deal with a Walmart person that you want to deal with every time because they're knowledgeable, they're friendly, right? And then you go in and the person doesn't know anything and they give Walmart a bad name. You have IRS customer service that's the same as well. They click the wrong button, they do the wrong thing.
Right.
But the reason why the number is increasing is because the amount of ID verify has increased substantially. It used to be about 4%. It is increasing each year, especially with identity theft and people raising their hands wanting to be a part of it. And, the taxpayers that intend to do the right thing, they want to get their money through you because they pay you off and they get it faster. When they get it to disregard the direct deposit method, sometimes they'll call and complaining to us because they're not getting their refund for 6 weeks and they're the cause of it, right? Because they're going to get mailed a check. Like, well, you did this. I mean, what are we supposed to do? Talk to the IRS. Okay. These people. Yeah.
Right. Well, thank you again. I appreciate you answering that question.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Nikita.
So, Gloria, the highest fee you can charge is $14.99.99 is the max tax prep fee that can be charged. After IRS acknowledgments start, we ask that your average tax prep fee per week not exceed $800. And then there's basically a 3-week grace period. Before the end of the 3rd week, you will get a call from me and say, hey, listen, for the past 3 weeks after IRSX start, your average tax prep fee has been in excess of $800. Can you please explain to me why? And if we can't come to a sufficient understanding, then an office can be cut from our program. Although there are times where there is an explanation that holds water. I mean, if someone's preparing multi-year returns, doing other services, located in a place where it's very expensive to do business. I mean, there are explanations as to why, but we consider ourselves stewards of the industry, so we do watch what the max tax prep fees are and the average tax prep fee.
And Gloria, I did unmute you. If you do have a follow-up to his response, feel free
Sure,
to
yeah.
join in.
Right on Jeff in the morning, he couldn't jump in. And the other thing I was just would really ask you, but I don't know.
So Shirley asked another question, and Gloria, if you have something to say by it, all means, shut me up. You had a client got a loan, but the refund got increased, but wasn't able to pay the loan back to be able to get the penalties they paid most back. Okay, so Republic takes 3 years of funding into account when reviewing loan applications from taxpayers, right? So, and a lot of you have been with us a long time, right? So let's say this is in the 4th year and they don't fully fund. It is possible for them to still get a loan, but it would often be countered to a lower amount, right? Because we don't know if any additional money would be withheld, and if it's even 1 penny less in a future season, if it's even 1 penny less than the AC amount, that is not considered fully funded. So if they weren't able to pay the loan back, or most of it paid back, then yes, they can still get a loan in an upcoming season, assuming that it had funded in previous seasons, right? But it could, like, they could apply for 2,000 to be countered to 500, right? Because we're just mitigating our risk with, is this going to fund and is it going to fully fund in order to pay your fees and the loan back? So it's possible, but it's not assured, right? Because that happens often. In fact, it happened often this past season. That's a good question. Boy, Shirley got a gold star over here. Oh, Gloria responded. She just wanted to know. Gotcha.
All right, everybody. I think this is a wrap. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us and we'll get you in touch with Carter. And be on the lookout to your emails. We will be also posting this recording on our YouTube and Facebook social media outlets. So definitely check it out. And we look forward to working with you all. And I haven't any final words for us, Carter?
Just that Jay Pearson, follow up with you tomorrow. Tamasha Rosser, follow up with you tomorrow. Shirley, the Netspin cards, follow up with you tomorrow. And then Janelle, Bebe, follow up with you tomorrow. I will follow up with you, get your answers to your liking, because you don't ask questions just for your health.
Fantastic. Well, appreciate your time, Carter, especially, and all our EROs for this wonderful, one of the best webinars we've had, actually. It's very engaging and I'm very pleased. So thank you again for everything you guys do for us.
Yeah, we hope you found it valuable. You know, normally you just want to hear what we're doing new. I think it's important to know the status of the industry because it has changed taxpayer behavior. So that's why we thought it was important to do an industry updates webinar, just to let you know where things are at, because we're getting tons of calls. So we figured there were questions there as well.
All right. Have a great week, everyone. Thank you for joining again. Goodbye.